Hello, my name is Spencer Baxter, and this is actually just a story about when I went to Yellowstone as a kid, and it definitely ties into the issue of the national parks and helps bring a connection there from kind of a blast from my past and a flash memoir that I wrote. So forgive me if I'm not looking at the camera the whole time, but I'll just read this memoir that I wrote. You pull up to your favorite national park. There is a sign that says closed. You wonder why. You're disappointed. You turn around and head back home. This could be the case if we don't put more pressure on Congress to increase funding for our national parks. The reason this funding is important is because the connection you make with Mother Nature and the people you adventure with. There's nothing like being in the great outdoors and taking a break from our electronic-based world. You create a bond that creates lifelong memories. If you've never experienced the majesty of our national parks, imagine your happy place in nature, somewhere you can go and relax and leave the norm behind. Excuse me. Top that with fun family memories, bug spray and tinfoil dinners, and now we're talking. We dodged a bullet in a recent bill that would have lowered the budget for our parks. On the National Parks Conservation Association homepage, it informs us of the recently proposed budget cut to lower the park's funding by 13% overall. Fortunately, this did not pass. Undoubtedly, if it had, the condition in which the parks are kept could not be maintained. The loss of park rangers and staff would without question be impacted, and the upkeep and breathtaking landscape we find there. The main problems in the National Park Service is the $11 billion backlog of infrastructure repair needs. That's a lot, I know. In the article Victory, found on the NPS website, the solve was a bill known as the National Park Service Legacy Act. This would establish a dedicated park maintenance fund to invest a more substantial amount towards the park service repair backlog. I am pleased that this legislature has considered this solve. It sounds like a great bill. Allow me to share why this is so important to me. When I was about 5 years old, my family took a road trip to Yellowstone National Park. It was a hot summer day in the late 80s. Of course, we had the ever-popular bright fluorescent colored shirts and stone-washed jean shorts. I remember my anticipation in seeing a buffalo up close was on par with the excitement of getting an early Christmas present. We all piled in our brown and tan station wagon. I was so small that the station wagon felt like a school bus. It was as loud as a bus. With a big V8 engine, it roared over the highway. It would always blow out smoke out the exhaust when it started, but it got us places. We'd hold our hands out the windows, feeling the air resistance, pretending that they were planes flying while we were driving. Excuse me, just scrolling down here. My older brother Jake and I would play cards and talk about Nintendo games in the back seat. My 3 older sisters would sit in the row in front of us, braiding each other's hair. We seemed to get along better in the car than at home. Maybe that is the draw I have to the outdoors. It's the escape on a road trip from the mundane, the redundancy of most days. Incredible things can happen in the outdoors, even getting along with your siblings. I remember watching tall mountains with pine trees, sunlight flickering through as we drove. My brother and sisters telling me stories of geysers shooting high into the air, how Old Faithful was called Old Faithful because of the explosive bursts. Could practically keep time. I remember the smell of pine mixed with fresh air when we arrived. That distinct smell was the beginning of my love for nature. Hopefully we got a good view of the mountains here. Can't really see Mount Olympus, but it's perfect outside today. A little cold. Incredible things can happen in the outdoors, even getting along with your siblings. Oh, sorry, I lost my place. I remember sitting on the log bench, just waiting, and I remember the exact moment Old Faithful erupted. I look into the distance and hear the ground start to rumble a bit. I hear the sound of water gushing from the earth's core. I grab my brother's hand tighter. Then the sound of the loud geyser shooting into the air, and everyone filled with excitement. The sound is like a rocket shooting off into space. If I close my eyes, I can tell the difference. I could feel the mist hit my face, and I remember the smell of the minerals the water possess. After the geyser reaches its peak, it splashes back down to the ground. My 5-year-old self was positive it shot thousands of feet into the air. The anticipation before it erupted again made it worth staying in my seat. That first experience with Old Faithful is something I'll never forget. I want to be part of the fight to keep the parks well funded and unharmed, so everyone has a chance to share that memory and human connection. The thing I love most about the national parks is the feeling of being lost, but finding yourself at the same time by separating yourself from the day-to-day life. Being in the great outdoors is the highlight of my childhood and an important piece that shaped my love for camping and cultivated a very close family connection. What do you remember as a child that connected you with the outdoors? Would you fight for making sure you and your future generations can visit our beautiful national parks? The current issues with the underfunding and staffing of the national parks had such a large toll. If the parks are not well cared for, it can directly affect the way people spend their outdoor trips. If you understand the feeling of being in the middle of the nation's greatest treasures and freedom that it awakens in people, it helps bring understanding of the importance and urgency of the park's uncertain future. I want to continue my family's tradition and take my own children places I was able to visit as a child. There are millions of people who have history with the national parks and very similar family ties, and with similar family ties. We can't stand by and watch that fade away. Thanks for listening to my story. Sorry if it was a little jumbly, but that was just fun to write this memoir in my English 2010 class in 2018. And enjoy my other videos and my digital magazine, Roosevelt's Redwoods. Thank you.